Distribution provided by Cloud Sigma, the cloud that adapts to you. Visit cloudsigma.com/thisweekend for a free $200 credit.
Today's episode of This Week in Startups is brought to you by MailChimp. Manage lists with up to 2,000 subscribers and send up to 12,000 emails per month for free with MailChimp. And by Squarespace. Use the promo code TWiST9 when signing up to save 10%.
Hey everybody, it's This Week in Startups. It's our news roundtable. We got an amazing program for you. The iPhone 5 is out and I have it right here. We're going to discuss it. Also, Twitter is locking down their service like it's Fort Knox and kicking out all the API developers. iOS 6 Maps from Apple is a complete, utter embarrassment. Yahoo has their money from Alibabba, but it's going to shareholders, and Marissa has very little to spend. And Zynga executives are departing like crazy. We're going to talk about all of these issues and more right now on This Week in Startups. Stick with us.
That's what it's all about, man. They said money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you. Yeah. Money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you.
People up in Hey everybody. Welcome to This Week in Startups, the program where we talk about startup companies, technology, entrepreneurship, all that great stuff. And it's going to be a very exciting program. We got some great folks with us, Brian Kennish of Disconnect, and really a security and internet expert, and Jay Levy from Zelkova, the venture capital firm, a great entrepreneur and a great venture capitalist is going to be on the program. And Kirin Kalia, of course, from the Launch Ticker, which is surging. People tell me it's like the most brilliant product I've ever conceived of. It's pretty amazing. People are responding to this Launch Ticker.
They love it.
What is it?
It's just so efficient.
That's what it is, the efficiency.
So efficient. And they like your comments.
They like the comments, that's true. Is it, we work together at Silicon Alley Reporter, and so we've worked together across 2 of my 4 companies. In your estimation, is it the most brilliant product I've ever created?
Considering the time and the place of where we are with the way journalism is, I think so.
It's a pretty interesting thing. It's like, this is what entrepreneurship is about. You keep trying, you keep figuring things out.
Oh, yeah. We tried a lot of things in the last year with the Launch editorial
blog
product.
And stuff like that, using Squarespace, of course, great product. And it really is that people, it was very interesting how we came to it, which is Gabe Rivera wouldn't link from TechMeme, who was sort of a friend of mine. We're friendly, I guess. Maybe not now, because I dissed him publicly, but he wouldn't list all these great profiles of companies we're doing.
I know. I was writing those profiles. And
it's very frustrating.
Yes.
And so I called him out on it, and I tried to talk to him about it, and he told me that profiles are not interesting for TechMeme. You need to have like a salacious headline. He literally told me like it has to be more salacious and more buzzy in order to be on TechMeme. And I just said, TechMeme is kind of turning into this house of mirrors. And I can't really, it's not efficient for me. And then that's when we sort of had this discussion. Well, what would be efficient? What would be more efficient than TechMeme? And we said, well, if you just looked at all the stories as they're being tipped to TechMeme and what TechMeme's covering and what's on Hacker News and all these other places, and you just summarized it as quick as possible, would that be an interesting product?
And it is.
And it is. And what is the monthly donation up to now?
It's getting close to $1,200.
Wow, it broke $1,000 in just, 30, 45 days of asking for donation?
Yeah, we started end of July asking for money.
Yeah, very interesting. And now we have, 3,000 people on the...
About 3,700.
Wow. And right now, it's just launchticker.com. And if you go to /live, it dumps you into a Google Doc where you can see myself, Kirin, and Kevin, one of our researchers, just talking about all the stuff that's going on the internet. It's become a very efficient product. So if you want to go check it out and give me feedback and Kirin feedback, go to launchticker.com/live or launchticker.com, and you'll see all the information there. Go check it out. It's worth checking out. And if you have tips at launch.co or launch.is, any of those, right? Okay, great. Hey, let me tell you about Squarespace. Squarespace is the software we use to publish on the web. It's amazing, and we've used it for the Launch Festival and for the Launch blog. It's incredibly easy to use software that works on mobile, and it works with HTML5, CSS. It's just gorgeous. And you hear myself and some other folks who use the product just rave about it. I've heard Leo Laporte, I've heard Kevin Rose, all the people I respect and know in the industry use this product. Why do they use it? Because it makes gorgeous websites. Like, let's take a look at these two. Here's the Van Brunt Stillhouse, an artisanal distillery in Brooklyn. And hey, that's a gorgeous website. Everybody would say, wow, that's a good-looking website. Well, they don't have to hire tons of designers and spend tens of thousands of dollars to do this. They can use the beautiful templates that come with Squarespace and make a gorgeous looking website like this. And you say, well, that's great, but what about mobile? How do I get it on an iPad, right? You go to a restaurant website these days, and you go, or a brewery or whatever it is, and you look at their mobile website on your iPhone or your iPad, and you're like, oh my God, these people don't even have a mobile website. Well, here you go. If you make the website gorgeous, here it is on my iPad. And if I flip it, of course, it flips beautifully. And you can flip around and see, look at this gorgeous navigation. Now, this is stuff that would be previously only available to the rich, affluent internet companies that had a huge staff to do these kind of, fun things. But you know what? Now, thanks to Squarespace, it's available to everybody. Here's another good-looking one. This is a photographer named George Karamanis. I don't know him, but it sounds like he's Greek, so he's obviously very talented. And I'm looking at these gorgeous pictures, and hey, I flipped my iPad? Oh, it worked perfectly, and now I can flip to the side. Gorgeous stuff, and if you look here on the web, absolutely gorgeous stuff. Just zip around and experience the gorgeousness of Squarespace. Trust me, you're going to love it. With Squarespace 6, which is what we're showing, every site automatically has these resized mobile versions. That's critical because internet traffic has quickly become 40-50% of the traffic on the internet, and that didn't even exist just 4 or 5 years ago. And it's interesting. People in Europe were laughing at us. Nokia and all these other companies in Europe were like, "Oh, the U.S. is so far behind. The U.S. is so far behind Europe on mobile." I used to go to the web or other places, and everybody would just be ribbing the, Americans. Oh, how far behind? Oh, we're behind? Oh, what? Excuse me? Huh? Hello? Oh, I'm sorry. Nokia what? iOS? Crushing success. Android crushing success. America's back. USA. Everybody start chanting it. We win again. United States innovation took over the mobile market, and you know what? We did it right because now traffic is flowing to these mobile websites, and we're crushing it. iOS, I don't mean to be all nationalistic or something like that, but it does say something about the American entrepreneurship system that we can be an absolute bit player in the mobile space and then take it over in 5 short years. Nokia, right? We crushed you guys. No offense. I know you lived in Europe for a long time.
But anyway. Have no loyalty to the Finns. It's all right.
Yeah. So, haha, Nokia for failing. And the United States wins again. Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, bottom line, mobile is where it's at, and you need Squarespace to catch up. Go to squarespace.com/twist and try it out for free for 2 weeks. No credit card required. That's when you know you got a confident company. Just try that out for free. And when you do end your trial, all trials do come to an end, and you do decide to convert, make sure you use TWiST9. It's very important because when you first start the trial, they don't ask you for a code. They just want to make it easy, get you up and running. However, when you then decide to check out and convert from the trial, it will ask you, do you have an offer code below pricing, and enter the code TWiST, TWiST9, and you'll get 20% off a yearly or bi-yearly plan, and that's critical. These guys provide the best support in the world, 24/7, and these are beautiful, professional-looking sites, as you know. So make sure after the trial is over to use the code TWiST9. Go to squarespace.com/twist for your 2-week, no credit card required trial. Really great team over there and awesome products. Today on the program, Brian Kennish is here. How you doing, Brian?
I'm good. How are you, Jason?
I am well. How's everything going at Disconnect?
Stuff's going great. We're up to 800,000 active users now, which is incredible.
Wow. And describe the product for people as it stands today.
So we build tools that help users understand and control their personal data online.
And in English? How does it manifest itself in a product, rather?
We stop all the sort of tracking that manifests itself from advertising and analytics services across the web. So there are these thousands of sites and services that otherwise track you as you browse and search the web.
Yeah, and you can get it in the form of a Chrome extension, correct?
Chrome, Firefox, and Safari.
And I have
all
it.
Available.
It's pretty amazing. When you have this installed, you see exactly how many Facebook and Google and LinkedIn and Twitter and Yahoo cookies are tracking you. It's unbelievable, huh?
Yeah, the state of the art of tracking has definitely blown up in the last few years.
And it doesn't seem to be slowing down, does it? I mean, they're just collecting more and more information, and you've been quoted widely in the Wall Street Journal, amongst other publications, finding out about all the secret tracking they're doing. There's been a lot of people sort of in the gray area, bending rules, saying they're not tracking, but actually tracking. What's the state of that today?
So, I mean, my background is in ad tech. I worked at DoubleClick, almost 10 years ago now. And people used to click on ads, but they don't really anymore. So we've evolved into doing all this behavioral tracking and targeting as a way to get users to actually click on these things. And it's kind of become like more and more desperate of a game to get users to find out more information, to get users to click. It's not really a good state of affairs for users these days.
And really, it's the like buttons and the Google +1 button and the retweet this button. Those are a front for collecting private information, correct?
Well, possibly. I mean, I think we talked about it on the show before. Facebook came out with this patent that they are, using the like button to collect all your browsing history and then going to spin that into behavioral targeted ads. So there's definitely this idea out there that this data could be used for that sort of stuff. Yeah,
it's pretty clear. And you are just a great entrepreneur, working in that area at the edge. And full disclosure, I think I'm an investor in your company and an advisor, right? And it's going well. So very proud of the work you guys are doing. And you guys got more stuff coming out, I know.
We have some cool stuff in the pipeline that we're really excited about.
But you can't talk about yet. And Jay Levy is here from Zelkova Venture Capital. How are you doing, Jay?
Good. Thanks for having me.
And how's the investment portfolio doing over there? You guys got a couple of big wins. I believe your biggest win would be?
The one that's getting the most attention right now in growth is Fab.com.
Oh, yes.
So we're pretty excited about that.
I'm going to guess overall, you guys invested in that probably in the $10, $20 million round valuation, and it's gone to $1 billion valuation. That's probably 50x for you guys. You don't have to confirm or not, but you could. What do you think, Jay? 50x? I've shocked him. He's frozen.
Oh, no.
He's just frozen there, wondering, God, Jason, why do you have to do that on the air? I think we have a little technical difficulty there. We'll get that connection reset. Let's go to the first story. What's the first story?
Well, the first story, Twitter, as you know, updated its iPad app this week. And everybody, of course, rushes to go download it. And then they find out, wow, I can't easily click from the timeline anymore. Those really cool panels that they came out with, the Lauren Brichter design, is all gone. And a lot of people started saying, this is actually crap. Why did they do this? And, the whole idea, of course, is to unify your experience. It looks a lot like the iPhone app now. So I guess the question is, do the negative reviews matter? And how long before Twitter's going to force third-party apps like Tweetbot to shut down?
It's pretty interesting. Twitter is locking the system down. They also turned off access for a very loved emerging product, If This Then That.
Yep.
What is it called? IFT?
IFT.
It's just referred to as IFT.
Yep.
And how would you find IFT on the web? Is it just IFT?
IFTTT.com.
IFTTT. And this was a really cool product because you basically would say on IFT, if I get a tweet from this person, then email me.
Exactly.
Or if I get an email from this person, then SMS me, whatever.
Exactly.
And I don't understand what Twitter is doing to themselves right now. They're locking down their platform, which was built off the backs of the innovation of all these developers. Now, other people are desperately trying to get developers to build for their platform, and Twitter is doing the opposite. It is a maddening strategy.
Well, and Dick Costolo was on Charlie Rose.
Saying that they're an API company.
Well, they want to have a true platform, and he wants it to be like how Amazon integrates its third-party vendors, right? That you create value by being part of the network. So you're not supposed to actually make it feel different? I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of this goes to look and feel. I think they have a lot of Facebook envy where Facebook, you had to use the API, you had to use certain boxes, and now they're sort of reining everything in. But I have to say, this is incredibly poorly executed. It's just a bit of a PR disaster, and what they're doing is they're driving people to app.net, right, obviously. That's a really interesting project. And those people I just got invited to a developer meetup, and all these developers who want to play with the social stream are now going to app.net. And I think it's going to create, a new class of service will come out that'll be API guaranteed forever. It's almost like a bill of rights, and Twitter needs a user bill of rights. And I'm a little peeved as a power user on Twitter that this is happening because I feel like I've invested a lot in Twitter over 6 or 7 years. I've got all these followers, and now innovation is going away. And I sort of feel like I don't even own my history, my timeline, and now they're charging people to get access to the history.
I mean, you have how many thousands of tweets? Over 30,000,
Over
right?
30,000, right. I don't even have access to them. And then I have to buy access to them from another person, and they can't provide it to me, but it's available for pay. So I just feel like it's almost like Twitter is jumping the shark now. And I think they need to be careful. I think they need to do some things to rebuild trust. After they've locked down as much as they feel they need to, they need to rebuild bridges. And I don't know if that's possible or not, but I'm basically using this new app called Buffer. It's a kind of interesting app. You just let you tweet to all your services, let you tweet to app.net, and I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to have an abstraction layer, and Twitter will just be syndicating from Buffer, and my Buffer will go to all my social networks. It's not like Twitter is going to be my default anymore. No. And it's really because of this reason. I don't know if other power users feel that way. Brian, what do you think this all means? I mean, you're a developer and you're watching what's happening with Twitter. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like Twitter has decided to take a very conservative approach to how they build out their monetization and go this very standard advertising-friendly route, which I think it makes sense in terms of realizing their valuation, but it makes them a lot less interesting of a company. I mean, I think what would have been really interesting is for them to be this great platform company. They have such interesting data that no one else has, this very real-time information about what's going on in the world. And if you expose that to developers and let them build interesting things on top of that, that's pretty awesome. That's pretty powerful.
Yeah, and explain to the audience who might not understand, what does building an advertising-based business have to do with locking down your API? Why are those two things related? I mean, I know the answer, but I want to have you explain it.
So I think they want to control their stream so they can control how and when ads are shown. And when you have developers tapping into that stream and showing, cutting up and showing different visualizations of the data in ways that they want, Twitter loses the ability to control the advertising experience.
So it's a lot less interesting, and that means the product now is going to, I think it means the product is going to stall in terms of innovation on the platform.
Well, but they were never very fast at innovating either, right?
They personally weren't, but their developers were.
Right.
And so it felt like all the cool stuff was happening with the stream of data from Twitter, and now you have both these companies. Like for the last couple of years, I've obviously not been so interested in engaging on Facebook. I just syndicate my stuff there. And I don't like logging into services with Facebook because of they can post on my behalf. They can post like my little behaviors. Like if I'm reading a swimsuit, if I'm reading the swimsuit bikini story on Huffington Post, like I think they busted Mark Andreessen or something like that. He was looking at a model's story, and it got posted to his Facebook, thing, and somebody took a screenshot of it oh, look, Mark Andreessen's Facebook account just looked at 10 best bikini bodies. It's really, do we really need to share that much? It's getting to we live in public kind of levels. And so I stopped using them as my authentication for other services, and I use Twitter. Now Twitter is, pissing me off, and who do I use to authenticate? Do I have to... I wish somebody would just create an authentication service. Maybe app.net will be that, but just an authentication service that was widely used. And I guess we had this with, what was the open thing called? OpenID.
Yeah, actually Mozilla is working on something called Browser ID now, which is sort of the follow-up to the OpenID stuff.
Yeah. It's a sad state of affairs across the board. Hey, Jay Levy, are you back?
I am. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so when we left, I was ribbing you. You've probably made 50 times your money on the Fab investment. If you've made more than 50, just keep smiling.
Okay.
The smile got bigger. I put that smile at 67x. So I know my VCs. That's a 67.
Let's talk about the companies that need help.
Yeah, exactly. That's a 67x return smile. I can see that by the percentage of the curve of the lip. What do you take on this whole Twitter thing, Jay? Is this a smart move for them? Is this the inevitability?
It happens every few years. This happened a few years ago when they decided to start building their own apps. I think they announced it at Chirp, and there was a big rebellion, and the same conversation happened, and everything settled down again. And I think that'll happen. I think what it comes down to is Twitter is trying to figure out now all the great ways to monetize. I've interestingly enough, I'm starting a company myself, and I'm now playing around with doing advertising on both Twitter and Facebook, and I'm finding that Facebook is a lot better. And I think Twitter has a lot of opportunity, but they need to really figure out ways to appeal to the businesses like Facebook has been able to do, and like Google. And part of this is reining things in so that they can build tools that can make them a sustainable company going forward, and not just pipes or plumbing for the internet.
But couldn't they come up with, is part of coming up with your own monetization and your own system for making money and your own platform, why does that require shutting down the experimentation on the fringes? Is that just for confusion of market? Why does that have to occur?
Because they've probably identified areas that they want to own. And Twitter started off as, in some ways with no plan, and grew into this major force that has major economic and social impacts. And now they need to go, they're essentially going backwards in some ways and figuring out their plan. And as they figure out their plan, there are going to be people that are impacted.
Yeah.
And developers that are impacted. And, that is unfortunately the case, but it's a little bit of buyer beware for all of us out there.
Yeah.
As we develop things, if the platform you're developing on doesn't have all of their plans in store, you might wind up interfering with their plans down the road. So I don't think this is a lesson just for Twitter. It's for whatever the next future platforms are.
Yeah, building on another platform can give you a great jump start, but be careful because, like you said, buyer beware. When they decide that your business is their business, it's over for you. Which, TwitPic, and we talked about like people who are doing video hosting. I said that's a really bad business to be in. Sell that company as quick as possible. They didn't, but my God, the day that Twitter decides they want to host the videos or the images, it's over for all these other people.
Right. Well, and has anybody actually built a sustainable business on Twitter?
I would say like the Radian 6s of the world, those people who do like the Hootsuites of the world, seem to have a large sustainable business, correct?
Yeah, we're investors in Crimson Hexagon, which is in the analytics side, and they've been able to build a very substantial business around that side of it.
But they obviously have to pay the VIG to Twitter to get that fire hose, so there's some revenue sharing going on there.
Which we're happy to.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we need their content, and we pay them for it, and we're able to monetize it.
So for those people, it's actually great that Twitter's locking things down because it makes it less of an open playing field. It's, okay, you have to do a deal with Twitter in order to, you have to be in the bazaar. You can't just be out on the street making products.
We don't look at it that way. I mean, we look at it as, innovation is great, and the more innovation that can happen around the platform is great, but at the same time, these platforms need to figure out a way to monetize and stick around so that ultimately there can be winners around them.
Yeah, it's just too noisy, I guess. At a certain point, they just decided it's too noisy. People can't understand how to use Twitter. I remember in the early days, I was talking to Evan Williams, and it's all public knowledge now, and he said it publicly, so I'm not speaking out of school. I've talked about other issues too that I won't talk about, and he sort of said like, it's very hard when you type in the word Twitter into the iOS App Store, and you see 17 different things, and Twitter doesn't have a client. And they said, and he told me confidentially, like Twitter will have a client at some point, which haven't gotten around to it. And they wound up buying a company and then making that the Twitter client team. And so I don't blame Twitter so much, but I do think that Dick Costolo needs to do a better job. He's not communicating these changes well. And what they're doing is they're creating this pent-up energy for a revolution. So you have Dave Weiner, myself, Scoble, Dalton. You have people who are saying, I kind of liked that open fluidness of innovation. Don't kill that. And they're not responding to that, and then that's enabling app.net.
Right, but at the same time, when you consider that they're actually trying to launch these kind of things on the Today Show, they're trying to reach mainstream America. They don't really care what you guys think.
No, they don't, and they won't. But what they will do is enable potentially somebody to come along and move their cheese.
Or are they just so big that it can't be moved?
Yeah, I mean, things do get inertia, but, MySpace had inertia too, and that moved pretty quick. So, and AOL had, it was a 10-year story of AOL losing their user base. It was a 3-year story of MySpace losing their user base. So I think things are accelerated. The ups and the downs are accelerated these days. So I don't know that, while you do have this inertia effect, I don't know that's a 10-year inertia effect like it was for AOL where they had billing and credit card. Twitter could come apart in 3 years. Sure, why not? Facebook could too. I mean, I doubt it, but it is possible if they did made a couple blunders that could happen. All right, when we get back, let's talk about the iPhone 5, right? That's the next story up?
Yeah.
All right, when we get back from commercial. And, oh, God, this commercial is so easy to do because it's not a commercial. It's a testimonial. I have used MailChimp. Let me just get my shirt correct there. I feel like I need to be proper for such a proper, buttoned-up, awesome product.
And to do your EEE.
And to do that, yeah. Excuse me one second here. Okay. There you go. There you have it, folks. There's the commercial. MailChimp. God almighty, I'm 41 years old. I got kids. And, jeez, kid. Anyway, MailChimp is the greatest product on the planet. We use it every day here at launch and this weekend. If you're not building your email list, you're a dummy. I mean, really, wake up. Start collecting emails today. Go to MailChimp. Sign up. Put a little form on your website. Updates from blank company. Put your email in. Every day. You get 1, you get 100, whatever it is. Over every month that goes by, you're losing thousands of people. Your most important constituents who would be giving you their email are not giving it to you because you're so dumb. You are so clueless. You are so out of the loop. Yes, I'm talking to you, the person who does not have an email sign-up form on their website. You are a dummy. Listen to Jason, okay? I know what I am talking about. Get off your ass, get to MailChimp, sign up, and put that form on your website. If you will wind up having 500 people, what if you're Brian and Brian, you better have a MailChimp sign up on your website right now. I'm going to disconnect me.
We do.
Thank God you do, because I'm an investor and I could pull rank. Right, exactly. Not in these days, but you got to get people's emails. For the love of God, collect those email addresses. And if you get those emails, do you ever email your people, Brian?
So we haven't yet, but hopefully we'll start sending out a monthly newsletter at some point.
Yeah, and you got to send it when you have like ideas or something like that. Just send a short email. You're a smart guy. Craft that message, take the time and say, hey, I had some ideas about this. You send it to your constituents and they respond. They hit the reply key. That's my big tip. When I send to my 20,000 people, I say, hit reply and tell me what you think. And then I get hundreds of emails back. Sometimes it's a famous person. Sometimes it's somebody who's a nobody, but who's going to become a famous person. That's the power of email. Your social networks change like you change your underwear, but your email is for life. Unlike your underwear, hopefully. You're not wearing your underwear for life. Hopefully, your email is for life, and it's true. People keep their email forever. You use MailChimp every day, multiple times a day.
I do indeed. That's how we send the launch ticker daily email and the hyper ticker.
The hyper ticker. Explain what that is.
So we have an option for people who are obsessed with tech news and maybe they can't be in the dock all day and they want to know what's happening. So
2 or 3 times a day?
We can send them an email.
How many times a day does that go out? Twice?
Well, we've been sending it generally like once in the morning. And then in the
send it
afternoon.
3 times a day.
All
I want it
right.
3 times a day. Send it like after the first hour or 2.
Okay.
This way you get something out the door. The first 5. Just do like the first 7 stories. Get that out, and then do like the next 10, and then do the end of the day.
Right. And that's a much smaller group of people than the ones who
10% though.
Yep, it's about 10%.
Yeah, which is great though because those are the power users, and we're just hyper servicing them. God, the product is so great. It's so seamless. I use it all the time. And by the way, 2,000 subscribers free, and 12,000 emails per month free. And mobile-friendly email templates. That's really good. They're constantly putting out features. These guys are a profitable, strong, intelligent company, and they can afford to lower their prices as they increase their value. That's the kind of partner you need, and that's what the revolution of software as a service. You hear SaaS and enterprise and this whole Enterprise 2.0. MailChimp was one of the original SaaS innovators, and they crushed all these previous competitors. I could list 100 competitors who were charging 10 to 100 times more than MailChimp charges for a fraction, 1, 2, 3% of what MailChimp offers in terms of product. They have revolutionized the space, and they're leaders in their industry, and you can trust them with your email. And really, you could build an entire business off email. The free plan will always be free. That's their promise to you and to me. Thank you so much, MailChimp, for producing an amazing product. Next story.
Okay, so Jason, we want to talk about the iPhone 5, which you have had in your hands for a couple hours now, and you've been playing with it.
Yes.
As we know, there were lots of people who pre-ordered it, 2 million in the first 24 hours. The orders are backed up, of course. Some people aren't going to be getting it for 3 or 4 weeks. Huge lines at stores all over the country, all over the world. In fact, kind of funny, I saw the story this morning that there were some enterprising thieves in Japan who stole the iPhones before the stores even opened.
I was thinking of doing that. No, I seriously walked by the iPhone store, and I looked at the alley, and I just said, because, I grew up in Brooklyn. We boosted some stuff. I said, somebody could just go to the back of the Apple store, and just boost the whole shipment.
Well,
but I don't think you can use them after that, right? Because they're all ID'd.
Well, in Japan, they were stealing them from non-Apple stores. They were other retail stores, the Japanese version. So it's not clear if those 3 robberies are linked. And they had 191 iPhone 5s that they stole.
But how dumb are these people? Don't they understand that it's going to...
They're going to jailbreak them.
They're going to jailbreak them? Is that it?
Why would...
I guess that's probably right. They're going to jailbreak them. Okay, anyway, go ahead.
Anyway, so, huge amount of excitement. Of course, the tech press, as we know, was a little bit ho-hum. This isn't an amazing new product. But judging by the sales and so forth, there's clearly a lot of excitement out there. And what are your impressions so far?
Well, I can tell you right off the bat that it is incredibly... It's got a much different hand feel. Or palm feel, if you will. As you can see, you can hold it. It's much narrower. So I'm holding one in each hand here on the screen. And it's a much narrower experience. Lighter experience.
Right.
The thickness. It's probably it's actually the same width. So it's not exactly narrower, but because it's longer and lighter and thinner, it feels like your fingers can curl around it. Almost like if you had a guitar and the fretboard was a lot thinner, it just instantly feels different. And it actually feels better because I can really pull my fingers around the... And it's much faster, and it's got Verizon LTE, which means it surfs the web much faster. So I'm in the process of sort of writing a mini review of it, but 20% better screen, 20% better on the thickness, 20% better, 100% better on the speed for the LTE, and the processor feels twice as good. So this is a revolutionary product, even though it's incremental. So it's incrementally better 5 or 6 different ways, which means it is hugely better, right? It's a really...
Right. Well, and I think John Gruber, in his review, just kept using the word nice. It's just so nice.
One thing I can't decide of how I feel about it. Yeah, that's interesting, because that is right. But it has, the gunmetal or whatever this metal is. This is regular metal, and this might be gunmetal, I think people might call it, when you have like a dark gray metal versus a silver, like brushed aluminum. The iPhone 4S has a more industrial feel, like a stronger, heavier feel. This is so light, it almost feels flimsy. It almost feels like you would want an extra ounce or 2 on it because it feels so light and flimsy. But what I think this will do is it's going to increase usage of the device. Because it's got LTE and because it's got the faster processor and a little more screen real estate, that means surfing the web is going to be more delightful. And surfing the web on iPhones and doing email, that's one of the problems, I think. And I think it will get better. So yeah, I mean, kudos to them. It's a revolution. It's the best iPhone ever made. It's the best phone ever made, clearly. What about you guys? Do you guys have the phone on order? Brian, I'm assuming Brian's an Android guy, or maybe he's on that Firefox new browser.
I have an iPhone and I have an Android phone as well.
Yeah.
Let me show you my iPhone. It's probably time for me to upgrade.
Oops. Yeah, I had the same thing. Look, the back of mine is cracked too. Everybody's iPhone is cracked. The back is made of glass.
Well, interesting enough, I cracked my iPhone a few weeks ago and was over at the Apple store, and the rep was like the one thing he was hoping for before the announcement was the back not to be glass. Apparently it was a big issue for them from a customer support perspective, replacing all these backs. So it sounds like that was strategically done.
Yeah, it's a smart move.
Save money for Apple.
And it's lighter.
I think that's a decision Steve Jobs would not have made. He wouldn't have let them take the glass off the back. I think he would have felt that was like part of the design. But I guess in order to make it thinner, you have to get rid of the glass.
And to make it lighter.
I guess, yeah, this plastic is lighter.
I wonder how much input Steve Jobs had into this one.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting question. Yeah, he probably had a good amount, but obviously, not final. What is really interesting, I think, is this do you guys think this is the end of the smartphone cycle? Like, because it feels like they can't come up with something revolutionary, right? And if anybody's going to come up with something revolutionary, it'll be iPhone or Apple, right? Apple or let's say Samsung or HTC, it feels like there's nothing left. Like people are, NFC, well, that's incremental. Oh, LTE, incremental. Screen resolution, incremental. Battery life, form factor. It doesn't feel like when the iPhone 4 came out, it was such a revolutionary feel,
Right.
In the form factor. I don't think that they have a better form factor.
Well,
I don't think they're incentivized to at this point. At least Apple isn't.
What do you mean by that? Change is bad now?
Well, every time they release an incremental update like they've done, it blows expectations out of the water. It's
Right.
working for Apple from their corporate perspective.
Got it.
So why do something revolutionary at this point when it's working? Now, their competitors need to do something revolutionary.
Right.
If anyone's going to do it, BlackBerry needs to do it
Right.
with a new device. But I don't think Apple has the need to do it right now until and if they lose their dominant position in the market.
It is true. The iPhone is half of their revenue or more.
it's the
majority.
best-selling product they have.
Yeah. So that's an interesting point. It did feel like the iPhone 4 from the 3G was a big departure physically, much different. They took a lot of risk making the sides flat. Everybody had the curved one. So there was a big industrial design change between 1 and 2, between 2 and 3 and 3 and 4. But now, I think you're right, Jay. What is the upside in taking risk? They're better off just making it stunningly more powerful and incrementally better, making the apps better. But why would you risk the franchise?
Well, you could, do what they do with the other companies is you offer a different type of phone, right? You have the iPhone 5 and then you have the iPhone whatever next to it.
Yeah, the Note.
Something like that, exactly.
That's much bigger, but
Right.
not quite a tablet, right? Yeah, that's an interesting point. But then that leads to confusion in the market and another SKU, and they don't like having a lot of options. They like having less options. So I feel like it is the end of innovation in the smartphone, or we've gotten to the 90% mark, and we did it so quickly when you think about it.
5 years.
5 years of iPhone and then a couple of years of Palm. It's like in under a decade, maybe let's call it 7 years, the smartphone has been perfected in a way. Do you think we can say that, Brian? Do you think the smartphone is perfected now? Or we're 90% of the way there?
Yeah, the improvements feel pretty incremental to me at this point. I don't know. I kind of feel like it's about time for something new from Apple. Kind of waiting on the TV stuff, see what happens with that.
Yeah, the TV, and then you have Google Glass. But it feels like for this platform, we got there. Now, the question is there something revolutionary left on tablets? Do you guys think that, the Surface felt like that was pretty neat with the keyboard and everything. But are we also, just as a technology industry, are we so good at what we do now, or is Apple really that good, and Samsung, and even Google, I guess, and Amazon now, that we compress the time to completion with a new device to just a couple of years, where the PC took decades to get where it is. Laptops took decades.
Sure.
What do you guys think?
In regards to the tablet,
Yeah,
I don't think the tablet's perfected at this point.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the most usable device out there. I think that there's a lot more improvements that can happen and probably will happen. And from Apple's perspective, I think that they're going to continue to release products, and one product in each category. TVs are probably next. I really hope an iPad mini comes out, but we'll see. It definitely, in some ways, goes against what they've done historically.
Yeah.
But I think it could be a killer device in the market.
Yeah, you did see those emails about, I don't know if it was from John Ivey or who it was from, but one of the Apple execs, it was Phil Schiller, I think, was talking about how the 7-inch was really nice for reading. It was actually better for reading in a way than, the 11-inch
You do one-handed, right?
Yeah, you can do it one-handed, which is kind of nice. So I got to think they're going to do the 7 because they have to have a $250 in the market. They can't be $399 forever.
No, well, but then you have that confusion a little bit again, right? Or not?
I don't know. It just feels like it's such a loved product that there has to be something between. When your form factors are this disparate, there has to be something in between. There has to be.
I think if we see it for the holidays too.
Oh yeah, so that's the October or November.
Point, I think that's when they release it. It's the killer product for the holidays at $299 or $199, whatever it is.
Well, so if you're talking about the iPhone 5, you have to talk about iOS 6.
Yeah. Okay, let's do it.
Which, so as we know, the iOS 6 update came out earlier this week, and the first thing everybody noticed is that Apple's own Maps app is not perfect. It has lots of issues. You have parts of cities that don't appear. You have this, these 3D flyovers that are very distorted. It's like looking at a Salvador Dali painting in some cases.
Yep.
You even had the Irish minister who claimed that,
They put an airplane on his...
Well, the name of the
it-
farm was called Airfield, and they called it an airport. Like, they marked it as an airport, and he
Right,
called
so
it
they-
dangerously misleading.
Yeah, it is possible, although highly improbable,
Right.
that a pilot might mistake that, might use they really would never use their iPhone, but if they had some failure that they might take out their iPhone, they might have service, they might see that as an airfield if they typed in a search for airfield, but they wouldn't obviously land on top of a house and not see an airfield, so that's not dangerous.
Yeah, it's a bit of a ploy to say, oh my
Yeah.
God, look at what they've done.
That's a bit of
so,
a ploy. I do have to say that the photo upgrade is pretty nice because it gives you nice logos. Like, do you want to send this to use it as your wall, print it, copy it, Facebook, Twitter? Like, very easy to sort of. It doesn't use the old, buttons. It uses actual icons for all of those. So it looks like the photo app is much nicer. The app for Maps is terrible, clearly, but it has some innovative features. What else is the major change?
For me, the biggest change was the change in the keypad. Now, granted, I can't remember what the old one looked like now, but I can tell you I don't like the new one.
Yeah, it is a little different. Does it feel faster or slower to type?
I'm not on a
Yeah.
5
You're not on it
yet,
yet,
so
yeah.
it feels about the same.
Yeah.
And also, QAing something, an app as big as Maps, I mean, it's awfully hard to do without getting it in the hands of real users. Google Maps took a long time to get good as well.
I have to say that it's sort of counter. You can't. This is one of the problems that I think Apple has in this specific space is in order to build software to build services, they do have to be built incrementally in alpha, in beta. Like Gmail had only a couple of hundred people on it. Then you could everybody could invite one person. Then you got a couple of more invites. They rolled it out over years. I mean, it took 2 or 3 years for some people to get on. I don't know when they publicly opened it up, but even Pinterest took a year in their sort of private beta. That's not Apple's DNA. They want to release stuff all at once. They have to change their DNA for services to say, hey, iCloud is available to a small group of people. Here it is. But it's only in beta, and we're going to roll it out to 1,000 people at a time or something.
But I think
and
it's
not
really,
have the secrecy.
It's really difficult for a company like Apple that's been doing something a certain way for so long to change the way it does business.
They just have to do it for services. They don't have to do it for the hardware.
No, I know.
Just for services. But it's really interesting to look at the new store is really different. I mean, you have these. You swipe through the. Yeah, when you guys see the new
store I thought was good.
The new store is really compelling. Like it looks more like your desktop, but even better.
So I guess
Why did Apple roll in their own Maps application? What do you think their motivation was on that one?
I don't know, Brian. You have thoughts on it?
Well, I imagine they wanted to decouple from Google. I mean, having Google so tightly integrated into their most important products seems problematic for a company as big as Apple.
Yeah, I guess it's the Cold War between the two companies, and if you look at Maps, I guess what they did was they looked at what percentage of time is spent on each app, and they know Mail and Browser and obviously Maps are in the top 3 or 4. Phone obviously is up there. So if the top 5 apps, they have to own all of them. And
they already did it with messaging.
They did it with messaging. They have their own messenger. So, I mean, that's just standard operating procedure. And I also think, how soon is it before we have, other Apple products that replace Google products? So we saw YouTube was kicked off, right? That their 5-year deal or whatever it was, or 3-year deal ended. Does that does that mean that Apple will come up with a YouTube competitor? They'll have video hosting? Why not? They sort of have landing pages for photos now, right? From what I understand, I haven't seen them yet.
I haven't either.
You have when you tweet a photo, you could actually go to an Apple landing page. I don't know what the URL is, but I understand that that's how that's going to work. So it's really only a matter of time. Would they have a Gmail competitor? I mean, they have mobile me email, but that's more like pop email. It's not like you log into a website, I don't think. So It's going to become a pretty compelling war between these two companies.
So are you saying we shouldn't hold Apple to the same standard that we hold it for hardware to its software?
That's an interesting question too. I mean, I don't think that they can perform on their services businesses, whether it's iCloud, MobileMe, then iCloud. Now we have Maps. Previously we have the stock ticker, weather. Those things just haven't been great. They've been, I guess stocks was okay, but it had mistakes in it in the beginning. I just don't think that group is as good as the group that does the hardware.
Why is that?
And a company like Google has sort of the opposite DNA problem, right? Because they want to do everything incrementally, and that's why you end up with this incredibly fragmented Android ecosystem.
Yeah, somebody's got to take the Google approach to software and services and then couple it with the Apple approach to hardware. That's the sweet spot. So if Apple can be more like Google on the software side, and now you see Google is becoming more like Apple with the Nexus 7, trying to button it up more, and you also see Microsoft doing that as well. Although Microsoft really hasn't been, the standard bearer for software for a long time, or ever. They were the biggest, but they were never actually really good at rolling it out. So it's a brave new world, but all these companies are becoming the same. And seeing Zuckerberg talk about, it makes no sense for us to have phone, no sense for us to have phone. It makes no sense until it does. So if you're not working on it, or you think it's 3 years out, then you say it doesn't make sense. But when you start to get closer, I think you're going to see them change their tune because, Ping you remember they shut down Ping, I guess, in this release. But if they figure out how to do maps, how hard could it be for them to figure out how to do a social network? And they've got a social network right on here. It's called your address book, right? And then let's say they buy Path or they buy Twitter, which is what they should have done instead of the dividend. They should have just backed up the Brinks truck and bought Twitter, which I think they would get for $20 billion. The investors are probably realizing a $20 billion offer would do it. So I don't know why they don't just back up the Brinks truck and make Twitter their native social network. And then what happens to Facebook if then Facebook has to have a device because it's integrated? What do you guys think?
I'm in shock. Are you saying Facebook should build a phone?
I think they should, actually. I think they should start with something that is just very niche. Like, this is for people who don't have. It's a $10 a month, no phone, no talking on the phone, just a data device, and it's just for kids. Like, they should be like, this is for kids.
Well, except Facebook isn't for kids.
I guess so, but this would be a way for them to make the Instagram phone, I guess, right?
So
right?
Facebook should build a non-phone phone that's for kids that aren't supposed to be on Facebook.
I think it would be like an iPod Touch-like device. Like, they should build an iPod Touch device that has games, and any apps you have on Facebook work on there. You turn it on, it's Facebook, and it's free. That's actually the idea, because they have these whisper nets or these like networks you can buy. So if you buy it for $99 or $149, it comes with a certain amount of data for the life of the device. And you can just take it out and update your status anytime. You can play any of the Farmville games or any of the games. You can, maybe you can surf the web, maybe you can't, but it's basically a limited use device.
Would you be able to do video and chat?
Sure, why not?
Yeah.
Video, chat, all that stuff. But basically it's a Facebook device. Like if AOL came out with a phone in the heyday, that would be incredible, right? I mean, I think kids would use it. I don't know. Kids not using it anymore? I guess the kids are
that's
off
actually the interesting thing is that Facebook has been losing its cool factor among younger people. So they're not as interested in Facebook as they used to be.
Yeah, it's interesting. They
also all have smartphones.
Yeah, but a lot of them are using iPod Touches to do it. So, yeah, I mean, I think Facebook and Twitter are really at risk with Google and Apple having social networks sort of built into the products they make. I don't know why Apple hasn't gotten there yet.
But Apple's not a social company.
They're not, but the device is, and so if the device's primary use, or one of the primary use cases, right, we just said the use case is maps. Mm-hmm. They weren't a map company, now they're a map company. They bought their way into that space, boom. They weren't a photo company, now they are, they're not until they are, right? And so now, if they decide, we need to have a social network in here. They did Ping, so why wouldn't they buy Twitter or just turn on your address book and make it a social network? You're SMSing with people. Or your iMessage is sort of a social network.
But you wouldn't have access to the people who don't have Apple devices necessarily.
Yeah, unless they came out with an Android, device that you could connect to it. And I don't think they necessarily care.
I think Apple needs to stay on what their mission is.
Yeah.
Is to make incredibly great hardware devices. that have good platforms on them.
Yeah.
They did that and revolutionize areas. They did that with music. They did that with phones. TVs is logical. Home automation down the road. Like, I think they got to do what they do well. And building social networks doesn't seem to be what they do well.
Or maps.
Or maps, apparently.
I guess, but if you have $100 billion and there's this opportunity to make the one system that unites it all, soup to nuts, which was always Steve Jobs' vision, was to own everything.
Sure.
It's like, well, why not throw a couple of $1 million at a social network, a couple $1 billion, at maps? I mean, what do they do? Spend $1 billion on maps? They'll get it right eventually, right, Brian?
Yeah, although there's not a whole lot of revenue in maps, right? I mean, it seems just like a FU move towards Google more than anything.
It does feel like an FU move. It could have been started in the Steve Jobs era, but it does seem like that war is starting to level off. I mean, are we going to see an Apple and Google, Armageddon lawsuit over patents?
Are they just going to play nice and say this is too much of a distraction and too much, waste of money and
time? Yeah.
Yeah.
And the rumor is that Google has their own iOS app ready to go, so we'll see how long it takes Apple to approve it.
That's right.
Oh, Google has their own Maps app ready.
Right. And actually, you can get
I was just going to say that supposedly they've been working on it in kind of secret for I guess a couple years now.
Yeah,
and
makes
there's
sense.
Live Street View, which is one of GDGT Gadget's recommended or must-have transit apps. And you pay 99 cents, so there's no ads, and you can have the Live Street View on top of your native app in iOS 6.
So you can put Google Street View onto the Apple Maps.
Yes.
GDGT has it on their site. But you can't get Google Maps now, or only in your phone, on your browser?
I don't think if you wanted to
get
get
your browser.
Right, you wouldn't be able to.
There's no standalone app yet.
No.
And then if you get the standalone app, would it direct, when you click in your address book, can I change that default to go to that new app?
But that's the big anti-competitive thing that could spur out of this, is since you can't set default apps for anything on the iPhone. So you can't say, when I click on an address, default to Google Maps versus Apple Maps, or
Chrome.
Open this email tool versus the Mac Mail tool, or Chrome versus Safari.
Yeah.
That's where it's going to become interesting. In regards to potential lawsuits.
And that's where, isn't that where Microsoft got themselves in trouble, was defaults? Defaults matter.
Exactly.
Interesting.
But Google does the same stuff, right? They're integrating their own content into search results now.
Yeah, and in that case, they don't talk about the fairness of that, and you can't set that. You can't say, I want Yelp content in my local, or I want, Zagat, and pick between or Yahoo's local information. You can't pick there. But they do when you have the monopoly, you don't allow this kind of choice. That's the best practice. And then when you don't have the monopoly, you say the person with the monopoly is being closed, and then you give the choice, right? So with Chrome, when they didn't have the monopoly, they were like, oh yeah, Chrome lets you set which search engine you use, and Microsoft doesn't let you set it. You have to use Bing and, or whatever, or it's hard to set it. When you turn Chrome on, it's like, which search engine do you want to use? It gives you a choice. It forces you to select. But they do that because they know it doesn't matter, and they know most people pick Google anyway because they have the mind share. But it is a sort of like classic hypocritical nature of technology. Defaults, we'll allow you to customize the defaults when we're losing. But once we've won, no more changing for you, right?
Well, it's even like that OAuth stuff. I mean, it's all or nothing with that. You don't get to customize. You don't get to say, well, you can see this, but you can't see that of my data.
Right. Interesting. All right, last story.
Okay.
Or two more stories.
All right, so I think you want to talk about Yahoo, right?
Yeah, it's a big deal.
They closed the deal with Alibaba, $7.6 billion, of which $3.65 billion is going to go back to the shareholders, leaving about $650 million in Yahoo's
What is that, about
coffers.
$3 a share goes to users?
So,
shares or something?
Yeah. So it's not a huge amount of money for the shareholders, but
well, it's 20% on the stock price.
Sure. It's sizable for them.
That's like a 20%. That's like a 20% dividend. It's pretty sizable.
That's true.
It's like getting a 20% discount on whatever.
But the question is, can Yahoo now actually afford to buy any interesting startups?
Well, I mean, they do have the value of the company, which is whatever, $15 billion or something. I'm not sure
and they have about $2 billion.
What's the value of the company now?
They have $2 billion in cash.
Yeah, but they're profitable. And what's the market cap of Yahoo right now? Because they could just use their market cap is. Well, market cap's not coming up here in my new Why is Yahoo's market?
It looks like it's 18.6 billion.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah. So they've got this huge market cap. So they got 20 billion in sort of cash and market cap to play. That's enough, I think.
enough.
But it is kind of weird because there were stories just like a couple of weeks ago that Marissa was going to keep all the money from this.
Right. It was something that was promised before she became CEO, and so
That she'd give it back.
yes. And then when she came in, she's like, "Well, I don't know about that."
Right. She did a 10Q or not 10Q. She did some sort of notice that she may or may not give the money back.
Right.
And then I guess it became a negotiation, and then they must have told her, well, it's always a negotiation with the
Yeah.
board and the large shareholders. So she must have said, okay, well, give me some cash, and then I want to do these 3 things. So we don't know what those other 3 things are that she got, but I'm sure she's a good negotiator, and she got a couple of other things, like maybe she's going to be able to, spend a little more money here or there. But it took them long enough to do this. I mean, thank God they got it done. But they need to start buying some stuff. What do you think? What's the vibe, Jay, in the venture community about Yahoo now that Marissa's there? Are people hopeful that she's going to go on an acquisition spree?
I mean, I think it was a major coup for them to get her.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great renewed interest to see what she can do. So I think just the potential has been exciting. And, obviously anytime there's a company with a large bank behind them, they can go and buy startups. We all get excited.
Yeah.
So I think, it's going to be interesting to see where Yahoo is a few years down the road.
And when do you think she starts buying stuff? I mean, is the word on the street that she's looking for stuff now? And if so, what is she looking for?
I mean, I think the obvious areas that they really need to be focusing on are social and mobile. That's where the growth is, and that's where I would expect to see acquisitions coming from.
When do you think we'll see? When do you think we'll see one? Inside of 3 months, 6 months? When do you think you'll see the first couple?
I think she's going to go as quick as possible to really, make her mark and see, how much movement she can have in the business, and that would be the best move they can do.
Yeah. So that means sooner rather than later. Yeah.
She's smart enough, knows the industry. She doesn't need time to catch up by any means.
Brian, what do you think the vibe is in the Valley right now about Yahoo? Are hackers and technology folks saying, hey, it's not a bad place to work. Maybe she's going to do some interesting things. Do you hear vibes about, acquisitions coming from there?
I mean, I think people are talking about Yahoo for, in the developer community for the first time in a very long time.
Yeah.
I imagine that Marissa is going to focus more on acqui-hires, the Facebook style strategy, because it's the first time that Yahoo's really had a product person at the top, and they don't really have the engineering resources to kind of fill that vision. Yahoo has always been, from my experience, pretty weak on the eng side.
Yeah, so they're going to basically buy up some of these small Y Combinator or Techstars companies that maybe are 5 or 10 developers, and then put them on a Yahoo project maybe.
That's what I would expect. I mean, they do have some really valuable properties that just haven't gotten the attention they deserve.
Yeah, what do you think they should focus their energy on? If it was you, what would you be focusing on? Flickr?
I mean, definitely Flickr, yeah. That's where I would start. I mean, maybe it's too late with Flickr, but it's just a huge missed opportunity there that especially now that Instagram's gone to Facebook, I think there's still an opportunity to gain an audience there.
Yeah, they should be just pounding it. They should have a really great mobile app with the filters and everything, and they should have like they should just change, when you load Flickr, it should look like Facebook. And if they just made Flickr look like Facebook, they would be on the way to having a great social network.
And Flickr should have an app like Instagram.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they did release their app finally, but I don't think it really holds a candle to Instagram. Next story.
Okay, so
Or last story.
let's talk a little bit about Zynga, because you mentioned that earlier. So another executive left this week, Nils Puhlmann, their chief security officer since 2009.
Yep.
By our tally, that's about 10 execs since early August, and it includes the COO, John Schappert, infrastructure CTO, Alan Leiwand, Chief Creative Officer, Mike Verdu, Chief Marketing/Revenue Officer, Jeff Karp. Now, on the plus side, they did get Maytel Ginsburg, who's the COO of New Markets, basically because she has a gambling background. Stock actually had a bit of a recovery. It was rock bottom a couple weeks ago. It's above $3 a share. So have we seen the last of the departures, and what's going to happen next?
Well, I don't have any inside information on this, but obviously I did call the bottom of the stock. I said, if you just mathematically do the stock. Now, people will leave a company for a couple of reasons. One is, the stock options, the stock options are underwater and they're not repriced to the level they feel. But I did hear rumors that he was repricing people's stock options, so I think he was addressing that. The next reason people might leave is because they think that there's something fundamentally wrong with the business,
That they're not going to be able to.
that it's too hard to fix, and or they think the future is just going to be painful, right? Which sort of dovetails with the first two. So there's only so much he can do in terms of repricing people's options, because if they don't believe the company's got a future,
They're going to leave.
they're going to leave. That's number three. So if you reprice them and people think it's too hard to fix the problems, then they leave as well. And so I think a lot of the people who joined maybe joined thinking, okay, I'll just ride the stock. And then when the stock crashed to 25% of what it was when they joined, it just got kind of depressing for them, and they just think, wow, this cleanup is going to be too hard. But that doesn't mean that other people aren't going to look at it and say, well, now the stock's at 3, this could go to 30, and they've got a ton of cash, and they've got a base of users. So everything is, there's always buy and sell in the market. So if the housing market collapses, at a certain point, people realize, wow, renting is more expensive than buying, and wow, mortgage rates are incredibly low. What am I doing? And they don't believe the stock can go any lower. They don't believe the stock, i.e. the house, can go any lower. So if you don't believe the house can go any lower, which is how I feel about Zynga, it can't go any lower, and then you think there's upside. But for the people who are there, it's hard if you paid $5 million for your house and now it's worth 2.5 for you to want to buy that house for 2.5 because you just saw it go down 50%. But it may actually be going up. And that is a very psychological thing. And for executives like that who are getting pulled by Facebook or Twitter or Pinterest, or there's some up and coming Airbnb-like company, or something coming out of Techstars, or some up and coming promising startup, that can be much more exciting than, oh my God, we're getting beat up in the press every day. These things can cascade.
Sure. So is the gambling business the right business to move into?
Well, I always said on this program, without inside knowledge, that they would go that way. When they sort of tipped their cards a little bit when they bought that Card Hands company, which is a company that studies the card hands of poker players and lets you get information about them. It was pretty obvious they would do that. And if poker was where they started, that's where they're going to finish. So I do think that they'll do that, and I do think the stock will become a $10 or $20 stock, relatively soon. That's why I bought 10,000 shares at $3 or something, just thinking, wow, who's going to bet against Mark Pincus and $1 billion in cash and $1 billion in revenue, or $2 billion in assets and $1 billion in revenue? He's obviously going to figure it out, but it's going to be painful. Just like when the housing market came apart, it was painful for people.
Well, I don't know that you can equate those two quite that way.
Are they working on gambling internationally, or are they relying on stuff passing in the U.S.?
That's an interesting question. I don't know the answer to it. If they were doing international, they would have already done it. But I think they'll take a global strategy, certainly, because they do have a footprint around the world. But I don't know how big it is. But yeah, they have to start somewhere, and I think they'll start in the U.S. and they'll wait for all this stuff to clean itself up, which it is cleaning itself up, it seems.
Did you ever get your money back from that?
Full Tilt?
Yeah.
Yeah, Full Tilt. I didn't actually go in and claim it yet, but it's been settled, and you're going to be able to claim your money. I think I have $500 in there, $1,000 in there. It's not like a lot of money, but yeah. And they put the money in there for me because I was a Full Tilt pro, so it wasn't even really my money.
Poker News has been posting an interview with Howard Lederer this week, which is quite interesting if you're a poker fan.
And what is the interview about?
So just the demise of Full Tilt Poker and what went on behind the scenes from Lederer's perspective.
Yeah, and what was his? He is claiming he wasn't part of it, or?
Yeah, so it's a bit hard to believe, but he basically claims that he really didn't know any of what was going on. There were a Ponzi scheme or pseudo Ponzi scheme, whatever you want to call it. He claims not to have knowledge of the big discrepancy between how much there were credited in players' funds and how much cash the company actually had. Which is hard to believe because he was the de facto COO for 10 years, basically.
Yeah, it's sort of like a Bernie Madoff's, son saying he didn't know, or wife, right? It's like, really, you didn't? Hard to believe, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, it's all settled now, right? So there's not going to be any criminal prosecution, or is there?
Oh, is that? I think it's still ongoing.
I guess they've PokerStars bought the asset, but that doesn't mean the people who were involved in Full Tilt are off the hook. That just means that portion of it is settled, right?
Right. There are rumors that PokerStars got some inside info that online poker would be decriminalized in the U.S. and that's why they went ahead with the purchase. But that's just a rumor.
Yeah, it's pretty clear it's going to be decriminalized. States need the money, so everybody knows it's going to. Zynga wouldn't be hiring somebody. So the writing's on the wall, just like we sort of knew crowdfunding would happen. Because once you have Obama and his people say like, and you know, whatever, senators say like, okay, we're going to do this, the process has started. So people in the know the process has started. So they start preparing, and then they tell everybody else like, yeah, I don't know if it's going to happen or not, probably not. But they have the inside line, so they're investing in it and they know it's going to happen. So reasonably, it's going to happen. Just like crowdfunding, right? We had all these rumors for a year that crowdfunding laws would change. Then all of a sudden they changed. And now all of a sudden, certain people are in the catbird seats in terms of getting those licenses and setting up those sites, like AngelList or whatever. Yeah.
Sure.
Jay, what do you think? Zynga?
I agree with you. I think it's a buy right now. I mean, I bought it at $275 or so, and I just looked at it and said there's more upside than there is downside. Kind of given where their revenues are and potential in the market, I think it's a good buy. I mean, I think the exodus from the senior management is probably a buildup of a lot of things, and you know, my only concern would be how much of it is the stock price, which doesn't concern me as much as, you know, are there fundamental problems. But I think it's related to the stock price.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that.
And it's probably a pretty tough place to work right now, given what the stock has done. I mean, you know, even Zuckerberg alluded to the fact that Facebook's not a great place to work right now. It sounded like when he was speaking. So
yeah,
that definitely impacts morale when something like that happens.
I got to think for people that, you know, Facebook is, you know, once people are fully vested and the stock is going down, it's just too much for people to get over. It's like, oh, there's no upside left, and...
But you're still building a great product, right?
Yeah, in some cases, some people do that, right? Some people, like if you're a designer or a developer or a writer or something, you might be like, yeah, I just enjoy working with these coworkers and whatever. But for a senior manager who's there and has other options to gain a lot of wealth as a senior management team member, as a CFO, as a COO, one of those sort of top 10 positions, you know, it's like, well, all this upside and, you know, momentum in Pinterest and everybody's excited about it. People would rather move on to the next thing. They're not loyal in that way, generally speaking.
And I don't think Zynga was especially ever really about the product. I mean, for my friends, certainly they weren't fancy executives who worked there, but you know, I think they had an especially mercenary culture and got ridden really hard. So, you know, the disenchantment is probably a lot more now than it otherwise would be.
That's a very astute point, Brian, because if you run a mercenary place and you say like, hey, we're all here to make a lot of money, that's why we're just going to churn these games out and they're not going to have a lot of soul to them. We're just going to, you know, maximize for revenue. They were maximizing for revenue, and, you know, secondary was creativity, let's say. Or maybe number 5 on the list was creativity, was like maximizing shareholder value and efficiency and all this other stuff. So
that's not an inspiring place to work.
It is great to win. People love being on a winning team. So when you see the numbers going up and to the right, it's fantastic. And that forgives a lot. So people will forgive a little bit of like cultural problems or, you know, a tyrant or, you know, whatever aggressive culture. If people are winning, like Wall Street is like that, right? Like it's like, oh, wow, there's all these bad aspects to being in a bank, but we're winning and making a lot of money. So it's all forgiven when we get our paychecks. But the problem is once the paycheck stops, well, then it's like, wow. It's like somebody takes 10 seats out from that, you know, game where you're playing musical chairs. It's like musical chairs and then take all the seats away. There's nowhere for anybody to sit. There's nothing left for you to hang your hat on and say like, hey, but we all had a great time, right? It's like, well, no, we didn't actually have a great time. We all like each other, right? No, actually, maybe we don't like each other. Oh, we all love the product, right? No, maybe we don't like the product. You know, then it falls apart. And you got to rebuild the culture. But as Jay said astutely as well, there's more upside than downside, and that's how you have to make a decision. So I think they're going to get all these new people to come in and say like, hey, we're going mobile, we're building these new products, we're going to be creative now, and they have this war chest, like raising all that. Mark is savvy in that he got all that money into the company, and he's got those coffers there that he can just deploy, and he's a smart enough guy that he can buy his way out of trouble now, or he can build his way out of trouble. I think both those things could happen. All right. Do the Groupon story, and then we'll end.
Okay, so interesting move from Groupon this week. We all know the square slider, you know, you put on your iPhone.
Yep.
And Groupon's coming out with something similar, and it's being priced competitively for everyone, but especially if you're already a Groupon merchant. Square is charging 2.75% flat, or $275 a month. And Groupon's merchants are going to pay 1.8% per swipe plus 15 cents. If they're not a Groupon merchant, it would be 2.2% and 15 cents. So I guess, the question is, can Groupon really compete with Square? And
I don't know how any of these people make money if the merchant fees are 2% or 3% in the case of American Express. So somebody emailed us. Did you get that email from one of the readers? Maybe they just emailed me.
Yeah.
They basically said what does Square charge? 2.75 or
2.75.
They said Square is not making any money. That was what
true.
a claim. You think that's true, Jay? Explain it.
So that was me, Brian.
Oh, Brian.
So I think Square's plan is to make money off of all this transaction data. So they will or already have this vast treasure trove of data that they can do a lot of different things with. I think that's the plan.
So they make no money on the 2.75. That goes all to the merchant fees, the Visas, the MasterCards, and the American Express fees. And they're going to make money through the data? Or maybe they'll just raise their fees once they have a large enough footprint.
That's a possibility as well.
Yeah, it just seems very weird. Jay, do you think, are you an investor in Square, Jay?
No, I'm not. I mean, I think they'll over time be able to negotiate better interchange rates with MasterCard and Visa and Amex as they become a bigger player. I mean, kind of back to Groupon, I don't see this as them trying to get into the credit card processing business. I see this as trying to build out their platform to own small business marketing and the customer. And one piece of the puzzle, I mean, it's an important piece from a data perspective, especially what they're doing. But really the question to me is, can Groupon grow from being the digital entertainment book to a small business marketing plan that's legitimate and both customers and vendors want to work with? And this is one kind of piece of technology they would need to do that.
It feels like they're commoditizing what Square is doing, right? They're just making it part of their offering, which means Square could go the other way. Square could start create a consumer product for merchants to offer things and coupons and stuff like that, but I don't think they will. But this sounds like a really good idea for Groupon because they already have these relationships.
Right.
And if I'm coming in and I can just do payment and they've already, the cost of Groupon is getting salespeople into the local businesses. So what's this? This is the second product they can offer them, right? They started with a Groupon, classic Groupon, one deal every 12 months or 18 months. Then they have the all the time deals, right? You can have deals all the time, like Groupon Right Now. I don't know, what do they call that one?
I don't know what they
Anybody
call
in the chat room, what is Groupon like right now called? I don't know. Or Brian, you can look it up. They have some sort of product where...
Groupon Now.
Is it buy now? Like you can just buy a Groupon at a local place? It's sort of like buy now, right? There's some name for it. And now this is a third product. And so I've got a relationship...
Now deals.
Now deals. So it's like, okay, I have a deal with New York Bagel. Okay, we do a Groupon once a year with you. Great. That gets you all your customers and your email addresses and all that kind of good stuff. They're happy with that. We'll do that in your slowest period. Number two, you can have a deal going on all the time, and we get you 2 or 3 extra customers a day from that. Great. Oh, and by the way, we can be your POS system, and we'll give you that for free. And in the POS system, you'll have a mailing list, and we'll add MailChimp to it. And then we're going to add, you can buy keywords on, whatever. And then, we'll add Squarespace as a feature where you can build your own website. Like, they can just keep adding and adding and adding. And then, any other company has to come in and actually start that relationship.
Sure, but you have to like Groupon to do that. Do the small businesses actually like Groupon?
They love it. They love it. This whole thing of they don't love it, that's the fringe cases. You hear about the noisy people, but they would not have a 9 or 12-month wait to do a Groupon if the merchants didn't love it. Did you just hear that the merchants don't know how to handle and how to price and how to get them, handle that many people, especially if you are in the market. Think about it. If you need a Groupon, it means your business is probably not doing that well. You need customers. Well, why is your business not doing well in the first place? Maybe your business isn't run that well. Maybe you're a bad service.
Or maybe you're a new business and you want to get customers.
Possibly, but I think a lot of times it's people who their business is struggling. So what that means is the selection process for people who use Groupon are businesses that are maybe not as deft or good at what they do, which means, they're going to have more problems when they get more customers because they're not good at it. And that's a learning process for all parties involved. I don't know. What do you think? You long Groupon, short Groupon, Jay?
I'm not excited by Groupon.
Yeah.
I don't see it having incredible staying power, and I don't believe the retailers love them. I really don't.
Really? You think that it's just the desperate ones love it and then everybody else doesn't?
And it's only anecdotally, but every retailer I've spoken to has only had horror stories. about what they've done, and they'll do them once and everyone tries it once, but the repeats are challenging. So I think the concept of that you described, the platform that they are trying to build, is an amazing one, especially now that I'm launching my own small business and have a need for that. But the question is, does Groupon have the reputation to be able to build that with the retailers?
Yeah. That is an interesting, that is an interesting point. Do they have the reputation with them or not? It's going to be interesting to see. What do you think, Brian? You're long Groupon, you short Groupon? What?
Yeah, I wouldn't be long on Groupon. And, if I was looking for a competitor to go out and beat, Square is not the company I would pick.
Yeah, that's like, that would be like somebody trying to start a search company against Google.
We don't know anybody like that, do we?
No, that's just suicide. That's just like jumping in front of a train. Hey, okay, I see you put Operation Wall Street or Occupy Wall Street, wherever these knuckleheads are, as the 10th story, strictly to tilt me. Go ahead.
Well,
Dude, I know it tilts when I see it. Go ahead, tilt me. You put me on tilt.
Okay, 100 protesters, more than 100 arrested in New York, mostly for disorderly conduct when they did their 1-year anniversary earlier this week. Now they have evolved into disparate affinity groups. There's people, debtors revolt, get the money out of politics, reform healthcare. Now they had $600,000 that they collected last fall. There's only about 30 to 40,000 left. I mean, can they
weed
do something?
Is getting expensive. Weed's getting expensive. That's all. In New
Does
York
anybody
City,
care about Occupy Wall Street anymore?
Of course nobody cares. Of course nobody cares. Listen, those guys blew it. Hands down, they blew it. What they did do right, I think, is because they didn't declare a specific mission, they got all the disgruntled people to come. So they got the people about healthcare. They got the people about whatever issue,
super PACs, whatever.
So whatever you were upset about, there was a place to now go. So you get a bunch of people who are whining and complaining in one place, and then everybody projected into this that they were concerned about the disparity in wealth, or they were concerned about taxes, which is related, or they're concerned about healthcare, or this or that, or housing. It's like every possible issue. So I think they benefited by getting all those people involved. But what happened was nobody can tell you what Occupy Wall Street is about.
Well, and they spent almost $600,000 on what?
Weed. I'm absolutely certain. They were giving out...
Sleeping bags, tents?
No, they were giving out medical marijuana at the thing. And I just looked at that and I was like, I could tell you what Occupy Wall Street is about. That's about people going down and meeting some chicks and smoking some weed. It's basically like a dead show. It was a dead show. It was like the dead are no longer on tour. Go to Occupy Wall Street. I just saw the people on TV. I could just tell. I know that type. Brian, tell me I'm wrong.
Oddly enough, I was listening to Howard Stern sent some people down there to do interviews, and
Genius.
It's kind of exactly what you said. Like the people he talked to had no idea why they were even there.
Yeah, they're just like, what am I? And it's such a waste because there is a very valid issue here, which is there is a huge disparity in wealth. There is a huge disparity in who pays taxes and who doesn't. In both ways. There's, the rich actually pay more on a dollar basis, but less on a percentage. There's all these issues. And we do have a society that has a massive issue around unemployment, and it's a permanent issue that the Republicans and the Democrats cannot solve. And so if the Republicans and Democrats can't solve it, but they're claiming they are, then they're liars, and they're in the pockets of special interest. And the ball's getting kicked down the road, and you need somebody who can get up there and articulate that fact and say, listen, we need to think about how we take care of the people who are not going to be employable, and we have to come up with some solutions for that, like other countries have. And other countries have come up with solutions for that, and there are some innovative ideas around it, like making the work week 4 days a week so that people work less, but there's more jobs. And there's all these ideas about how to do that. I'm not saying that they're right, but they could have had a more intelligent approach, but really,
Yeah.
What do you think, Jay?
I mean, there's definitely something important and real at the core there. Maybe it's just not organized in the right way yet.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be, people will historically look at Occupy Wall Street as the false start for something else. Now, is it the false start for a full-scale social rebellion like you see in Greece where people are burning stuff and people are dying in squares, or in Egypt, which is based on something different, Muslim rage? Nonsense. Listen, if I killed somebody for every time I watched a bad YouTube video, You know how many counts of murder I would...
That movie is so bad.
I mean,
It's
I would
so
be
bad.
literally... I wouldn't have enough bullets to kill everybody.
Well, and one of the actresses now, she was trying to
Sue to
force...
take it down.
Exactly. And, she, of course
you can't.
isn't going to be able to do that.
Why is... See, this is the other problem with the media. Why is the media and everybody so forgiving of these Muslims, not all Muslims, right, but these Muslims, who believe that they get to kill people or burn down buildings because they saw a bad movie? I mean, did anybody see Transformers? I mean, apparently a lot of people saw Transformers, but nobody was murdered. I mean, I want to kill Michael Bay.
I bet you a lot of the people who are protesting
went
this
to see
movie
I'm such an
didn't
idiot.
see it.
I went to see Transformers too.
It's just like Occupy Wall Street. You want to be pissed off about something, you go join the crowd that's all
Jay,
rioting.
what's the story here now? Explain to everybody what's going on in the world, Jay.
Why are you putting me on the spot?
Come on, Jay. This makes VCs very nervous when you do this because they have to.
Oh, they
be
don't want to
very-
talk politics. Mm-mm.
They got to be very careful. Go ahead, Jay.
This week in startups.
This week in Occupy Wall Street and global wage disparity.
Global affairs.
Yeah, exactly.
I just wonder what the competition was between going to Occupy Wall Street and being the first line sitter at the Apple iPhone event on Fifth Avenue. I think that was probably a tough decision for some of those guys.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, there are better
That's all I
ways.
got for you.
Yeah, thank you. I'll take it from here, Jay. There are better ways to get back at your parents for sending you to Brown. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Hey,
Okay?
I went to Brown.
I know you went to Brown, but you're not getting back. You're getting back at your parents by being a successful entrepreneur and trying to take on a really important issue. What is your problem, Brian? Shouldn't you?
Yes.
Exactly. But industrious. It makes me sick.
Well, he's trying to prevent people from making money on the internet by making them untrackable.
That's not true. That's not true. Brian is a backstop against these companies running amok and empowering individuals to take a little bit of control over their privacy. And you know what? He's very early, but I think he's going to figure it out. Right, Brian?
Yeah, and I mean, ultimately, the way things work for publishers is kind of broken now too, and we're interested in being part of that solution. We definitely don't want to screw publishers in this whole equation.
And so that, the data tracking is good, right? Because I want to see more targeted ads, and consumers like to see more targeted ads, and they like to have more targeted stories. So there is a benefit to knowing what I like.
Right, but ultimately, I think there's a way to do it in a way that works well for the users as well as the advertising networks or publishers and so forth.
Man, I just want to. This is what I want. I want to be able to turn on a device and put on a web browser or something and know that everything I'm doing is not being tracked by anybody in any way, and that it's totally secure point to point. That's what I want. Is that even technically possible, Brian?
Any kind of 100% secure thing, that starts to worry me because you really can't guarantee security, especially not on the internet that was made for communicating, data.
But what about just people not being able to track what I'm doing? If I just want to just read
You just want to
news,
watch dumb YouTube videos.
Yeah, without people knowing that I'm watching this really dumb stuff, right? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely where we want to get to. I don't know that anything is ever going to be 100%, but I think we can come up with things that are a lot better than what we have today.
These VPNs, it seems like VPNs are getting very popular, huh, Brian?
Yeah, there are a lot of them out there. I mean, the issue, forever with privacy and security is that you're always trading off usability for more privacy or more security. And the point that we came from is that we're trying to not have users have to make that trade-off so that you get the same or better usability and you can get privacy and security as well. I mean, that's where we want stuff to go to. Hopefully things will.
And people don't even know what VPNs are, but it's a pretty cool service. I was using it for a while, and then I got lazy and I didn't use it. But you basically can tunnel in and use another computer to look at your stuff, and that just seems to me like the way to go. But one of these VPNs was turning over their file sharers, people using Pirate Bay so you just using a VPN doesn't mean they're not going to turn you over, right?
Right. I mean, ultimately, everything with a VPN is still going through a centralized service, unless you're using something like Tor, which is a decentralized VPN, a peer-to-peer service. And I think ultimately we'll end up with more things that are architected like that, where the difference is what we call privacy by policy versus privacy by design. And you want privacy by design because then there's, you don't put your data in the hands of someone to make a decision on what to do with it.
Yeah, man, that would be so great if there was a commercial version of Tor that you just pay $10 a month for and just everything was protected and it was privacy by design. That's the product I want. Man, somebody build that.
Not going to happen.
Not going to happen? I don't know.
Just because you asked for it?
You never know. Sometimes I ask for stuff and it materializes. All right, hey, listen, Brian Kennish, great time having you on the show. Everybody go check out disconnect.me, and he's BYOOGLE on Twitter. Hey, Jay Levy, everybody follow Zelkova VC, and don't tell anybody about the new company yet. It's not out, right?
It is, actually.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, we want to hear
you're going
about
to launch it. What is it?
So it's Uproot Wines, www.drinkuproot.com. It's a new wine company based out of Napa, and the most exciting part for me has been we're using 12 of our portfolio companies in the platform that we're building out for the new wine company. So it's given us a whole different view of investing, and it's allowed me to understand better which of my companies are awesome and which ones really suck.
Wow, so magnanimous. So you're dog fooding your own company's services as part of Uproot.
Yep, it's actually been a ton of fun. So
that's awesome.
I appreciate if everyone can check it out and give us feedback.
VCs building startups in the lean startup way. Everybody check out drinkuproot.com. Make sure we tweet that as well from my Twitter account, Kirin, and from everything else. Blah, 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 blah. And hey, thank you, Squarespace. Squarespace, what a great product. Everybody go to squarespace.com/twist to try it for 2 weeks free. And when you get that, when your trial's over, use twist9 as your code to get 20% off. And thank you, MailChimp, for making a wonderful product that I use every day as well. Everybody, go ahead and say thank you at MailChimp, thank you at Squarespace, and thank you, Kirin Kalia, from the launchticker.com for reading the news. Well done.
You're welcome.
We'll see you all next time on This Week in Startups.